We have Ryan and Michael Sanchez are in the other room, so they're here. Obviously, Lisa somewhere because we're in her office.
Yes, she's here. She's just.
Is Joaquin there?
He is
I
not.
have not seen Mr.
He's
Sanchez.
the only one we're missing.
2, 11. Here's-
Hello.
Hello.
Good.
I think we're just waiting on Joaquin, Michael, and Ryan are over here.
They're close.
They're chatting.
Okay.
Sharp, Michael Sharp, if you can hear me, please accept the panelist invitation so you can share your screen later.
I'm trying to get away. See, I'm so used to getting away from the camera I normally have in here that I know exactly where I can
Nope.
Where
Follow
did you
the
Yeah.
owl.
Yeah. go anywhere here.
Now, interestingly enough, I was in the office yesterday afternoon and my administrator, who's a very nice lady, one of those indispensable people. I don't know how I survive without her, and we'll have to figure that out because she's retiring soon. And, she stopped by my office and like 40 minutes went by and I was like, all right, this is nice catching up, but I've just got work to do. Like that doesn't happen remote. Like you get to the point when you communicate with somebody.
That's right.
You just got to learn the subconscious words that go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do know how to do that with it. We've had these chats like 4 times in the last year and a half that I didn't want to be.
No, that's fair.
So did you guys see the new thing that we got? No, I think it's just a reprint of the old thing
Well, there's
Right.
some, from Michael Sharp,
with a couple of,
there's a couple of new maps there that are evaluated.
I guess I thought I had already seen that.
Maybe I thought I did.
So this came in just 20 minutes ago.
I did not then.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I know. I
let
just-
me-
All my notes are on the other sets
That's.
that I have.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So I just brought both sets.
Well, I think there's just 2 new evaluations there, and I
Just-
think Michael called them INJ.
Justice
Yeah.
Chavez, the document you just sent me with the table summaries with the 2 new ones at the end, would that be acceptable to flip out on the website with the one that's currently on the map concepts page that has your highlighting on it?
No, the one that's on the website with my highlighting has all of the tables.
And this one you just sent me looks, oh, I see what you're saying.
Those
This
are
one
just the
looks-
house. Those are just the maps we will consider today.
Okay, I see, I understand. But in order to make the one that's on the website completely complete, it needs the last 2 pages of this house.
I believe that's right.
Okay, all right, I will work on it.
Joaquin sent me a text that he will be attending by Zoom.
Okay, I'll keep
Oh,
my eyes
okay.
out for him.
I guess I was gonna wait for everybody to get in here, but we're gonna need to take about a 10-minute break, just a few minutes before 5 o'clock.
Okay.
To
No problem.
comply with another Open Meetings Act,
Ah,
Open Meetings Act, I have to convene, take roll call and recess the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm confused.
The report from Michael?
Member request, we need,
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
it went into concept D, I believe, but I don't know that for sure.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know if he's, I assumed he was talking about I and J, but he might not be.
Actually, I think I'm wrong on that too.
I read them as modifications of I and J.
And what was the member request? I guess what were these, the consensus Northwest integrated with what? The prior concept D or is it E?
I and J. I believe these are modifications of I and J. But I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure Michael or whichever member asked for those will explain it.
That's fair.
Is everybody in the room that? had planned
Not
to be there?
quite yet. Let me text. Mr. Congelos.
Did Chair hear your request to?
He knows about
Okay.
it. Yeah, him I asked ahead to make sure that it wouldn't interfere with anything we had planned.
What you're saying is we're going to be here till 5.
Maybe, maybe not.
Do you think so?
Honestly, I have no idea.
They're on their.
Hi, Ms. Curtis.
How are you?
Good. Oh, that wonderful thing that you shared with me.
Yeah, how'd you like it?
Oh, we ordered some. My
I-
sister ordered some. Did you try it?
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's amazing.
It's amazing.
I know, like, it's
It's only like $35 for 6 of them on Amazon.
I'll
Yeah.
have to find out where Bob.
I did say hi to Robert or Chris. Hello, before I came in. Good. Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
You too, Sonny.
Good to see you.
You too, son.
How about Keen?
Hello?
Hey, Joaquin,
Dean?
Justice.
How's everyone today?
Great.
Good. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Are we situated? We have our iPads or whatever they are up and ready and going?
Yes, sir.
And our rosary beads too.
That's right.
Well, good
We're
deal.
lucky
We all need
that
that.
one.
Well, okay, then it's a little past 3, so I will call the meeting to order. And begin with roll call. Ryan Congelosi,
Here.
Lisa Curtis,
Here,
Robert Radigan,
Here,
Joaquin Sanchez,
Vicente.
Michael Sanchez,
I'm here.
Christopher Salcedo. The entire committee is here. And we are ready to go. We are reconvening from an October 15th meeting that was put off until yesterday. We recessed that one until today because research and polling had a conflict. Today, we will look at house maps. And that's it. But before we get started, I just wanted to make a few comments for the benefit of the public. Sonny, would you mind bringing up the website, please?
Certainly. One moment. All right. Can everyone see my desktop?
Okay, I can see it. So what I wanted to alert the public is we had our meeting on the 15th and we adopted maps. And I wanted to show you how to access those maps. I have a nice tree here. So I don't know what
Apparently,
happened.
there's a small technical difficulty here. It's tracking my desktop as opposed to the window. Here we go. Let's see.
You got
Let's
it?
share just Safari. Now I can share this with the members. All right. Can you still see the Safari window, Justice Chavez?
No. But I cannot see it, but that's probably okay.
No, it's, give me one moment. I'll get it figured out. Let's see.
Yeah, now I can see it. Just want to make sure the public can see it.
Yes, the public can see it.
I cannot see it on the large screen in your conference
Yeah,
room.
why can't we see it?
Yeah, it's not on the conference room. But
Do you know
can-
why? Do I just need to get my IT person?
No, I think. Stop screen share. Here. Share the screen.
Okay.
Oh, it's
There we go.
All right. So you can see the website?
Yes. So I just want to alert the public, go with me slowly on this, Sonny. But we adopted maps on October 15th for Congress, the State Senate, and the Public Education Commission. We have posted those under Adopt Maps. Will you point to where that is at? And if you click on Adopt Maps, you will see each map that we adopted and scroll down and let's show them the first one. That's the first congressional map. If you, right below it, you read Congressional Concept A, click here to view table summary, the demographics. So if you'll click on that, you should be able to see the profile for the district. It'll give you the total deviations. It'll give you the score for compactness. And if you go to others, and why don't we go down to pick a Senate seat? Do the same thing. You will see the table. And it gives you the total population, the deviation, the adult Hispanic. Then you can look at adult non-Hispanic for the various groups. And at the very bottom, you will get an overall picture. Just go ahead and scroll all the way down. There you go. This tells you how many adult Hispanic districts there are, how many adult Native American districts, and adult majority minority districts, which is 11. You can do the math, 15, 18, 29, and out of 40. And the rest are a majority of white. Then you see the total deviation table there, the compactness area, which districts are paired, Democrat versus Democrat, Republican versus Republican, and Democrat versus Republican. So these are the maps that we've adopted. As far as other concepts that we've looked at, just going back to home, Sonny.
You want the main map concepts page, the full?
Yeah, we'll go to map concepts next. Right at the very first paragraph, the last link is for table summaries and demographics on all maps that were published as concepts for public comment. You would click there and you can look at all of the tables that the committee has looked at in evaluating all of the concepts that were published prior to the October 15th meeting. And we've also loaded those maps here as well. For purposes of today's meeting, I believe if you go to map concepts all the way down to the house concepts, if you, there's concepts A, and but the last two should be concepts that we will discuss today. They are concepts where we have incorporated this one there. This one here is we incorporated the Navajo Nation's map into what is our concept D. And right above it, you will see that that is the Pueblo consensus map that we integrated into our concept D for purposes of discussion today. So if you wanted to look at the details, you just click on the link there and it will take you to Districtor and you can look at the details. All right. I hope that helps the public see what we have done and what tables we've looked at and what we are going to look at today. And with that, next we'll go to House plans. Last meeting, we started off with a Republican member of the committee to make a motion. So I would ask if there's a Democrat who would like to begin with a motion today. And if not, we'll go to somebody who's declined to state.
All right, so as far as the house maps are concerned, we might as well have the big discussion now over E, concept E, Center for Civic Policy Map.
Okay,
So I'm gonna make
there's
a
a
motion.
motion on the
And-
table.
Sorry,
You're-
Justice, since you're not here, sometimes it's hard for me when I'm looking down. I didn't realize you're speaking. Please continue.
Okay, the motion that is on the table is to adopt House Concept E, which was prepared by the Center for Civic Policy. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, it's been seconded by member Joaquin Sanchez. So let's begin the discussion. Lisa, do you want to speak in favor of your motion?
Yes, I can. So I'm gonna just bring up the map myself. Yeah. Can we bring up the map? Is
Sure.
Michael there? Can he do that? So we're,
Let's see, I've asked him to be a panelist. He should be. He's not. Yeah, I think he wants a second.
Yeah.
No, that's Michael Kite. We're
Oh,
looking for Michael Sharp.
sure.
Mr. Sharp, let's see. Mr. Sharp, I'm going to make you a panelist. Please accept. Let's see. I've sent you an invite. There we go. Decline. You're declining to be promoted to panelist. Please accept it when it pops up. It's going to pop up again. Maybe I'm going to allow him to talk real quick. Mr. Sharp, you can unmute yourself if you like. Is there some reason you're declining to be?
No, I'm not sure why I'm not getting the invite or the panelist invite.
I think you're already a member because I can hear you.
Yeah, same here.
Well, I've permitted him to talk, but without being a panelist and having co-host abilities, he can't share his screen.
Let's see.
So it said a moment ago that you declined.
Oh, there we go.
All right, great.
This process is about sharing the power, right?
It is. It is about sharing the power.
Okay.
Now, our co-host. This one.
Okay, Michael, I can't see you, so, but I'm assuming that you can see us.
Okay, yes.
All right, so, So-
Can you explain the map?
that's
please?
exactly what I was gonna ask. So there you are, Michael. Okay, great. Would you explain the map, please, for the benefit of the public?
You bet. So a quick recap of the map, just so you can see on the screen. It's just for those who are interested in the district or URL, it's 54132 on the portal. I believe it's plan 4968. And when we look at this, the plan, one of the changes, I guess we could start with the southwestern part of the state. And we can see that today, 38 and 39 were both in, it went from Sierra County and they split. Grant County went to Las Cruces. In this particular case, 39 stays in Silver City. So it's basically Grant County, all of Silver Cities united into 39. 38 still goes into Las Cruces, but it stays out of Grant County. TRC and Sierra County are split between 38 and 49. Another Southwest district is 32, which goes from Lordsburg to Deming. Also 39 does go into Deming a little bit. 32 crosses the county line, picks up a little bit of Hatch. Within Las Cruces area in Doñana County, District 34 in the light lavender goes from Sunland Park around Anthony and up to almost NMSU in Las Cruces. So that'll be, almost to NMSU. 52 starts in Anthony, goes north along the Mesilla, kind of the farming communities along the Rio Grande, up into NMSU and some of the kind of southeastern portion of Las Cruces on the east side of the freeway. District 53 is Chaparral up to Highway 70 that goes to Alamogordo and into the kind of northeastern heights of Las Cruces. 36 is the northern Las Cruces district. District 51 is entirely within Alamogordo. It's as it is today, it's pretty much Alamogordo, so it stays Alamogordo. Let me take off the house boundaries there, the numbers again. District 54, it does go from Tularosa to Alamogordo over to Artesia, the south part of Carlsbad. So it kind of maintains a shape that's somewhat similar to what you have today, but it does extend further into Otero, further west and comes out of Eddy a little bit. 56 is all of Lincoln County. So it's Ruidoso, has Mescalero and Cloudcroft and some of the more rural mountainous areas in Otero. 58 is a strong Hispanic district in southern Roswell down to Lake Arthur. 66 goes from the outskirts of Lovington down and through outside of Artesia and into Carlsbad. 55 is most of Carlsbad, Jal, and Eunice in southern Lee County. 61 is a Hobbs district. It's a strong Hispanic district as well. 62 is northern Hobbs within Lee County. 58 is Roswell, and 64 extends from Clovis through Portales into the northern part of Roswell. 64 used to be basically just the Clovis district. Now it extends further out. 63 is another Hispanic district traditionally, and to maintain that, it goes from Clovis into Portales through Fort Sumner, Santa Rosa, and then picks up kind of the middle precincts within San Miguel County, including Trementina. 67 is similar to what you have today. It used to go south and around to Clovis towards Portales. Now it stays north of Clovis. So it just goes from Clayton down to Clovis and picks up Cannon Air Force Base. Districts 40 and 70 are both maintain their kind of north central district positions, though their orientation, their boundaries have changed, and such that Pecos is with a Las Vegas district. It's a nice kind of eastern or western San Miguel County, Las Vegas district that goes into Moriarty. And 40 has Colfax County, Raton, into Mora, and into the outskirts of Espanola and around the Oque Owinge Pueblo. 42 is Taos, down to southern parts of Taos County, including Veita. 41 is, in essence, Espanola up to Tierra Amarilla in Santa Fe County. 46 is northern Santa Fe County, kind of the southern part of Espanola, Santa Cruz, down through Pojoaque and into Las Campanas, kind of northern part of Santa Fe. 48 is the central Santa Fe district. 45 is a kind of a southwestern Santa Fe district. And 47 is kind of the balance of Santa Fe, eastern part, the areas of Santa Fe area north of El Dorado. And District 50 goes from El Dorado into Placitas to Edgewood. 43 is a Los Alamos into kind of the outskirts of Santa Fe district, including, and then down to Jemez Springs in Sandoval County. Within, so House 22 is the kind of the western part of Torrance. It's Willard, Estancia, and then into the East Mountains, Cedar Crest to Harris. Within Valencia County, District 7 is, again, kind of similar to what you have now. It does pick up more of Belen than today's House District 7. District 8 is also close to what we have today. District 49, because it lost some of the population it had in Socorro, it had to extend a little bit. And so it did move further north into Valencia County on the west side of I-25 up towards Los Lunas. And then it also includes Las Maravillas within Valencia County, which would be this little kind of community right in here. Within Albuquerque, we do, the plan does follow the river from Alameda down to Central, so uses that as a hard boundary between those two thoroughfares that cross the river. 14 maintains a shape that's similar to what it has today. It crosses, goes into the Borellis neighborhood and into Atrisco. 12 is South Valley, 13 is Westgate. 26 is part of Westgate, goes north of I-40 up towards Ladera. House 16 begins about Central, continues north to Montano, and on its western edge is roughly unserved. 17 used to be in the North Valley, and instead of being the North Valley, it shifted all the way across the river. So now 17 is a west side district that extends from Montano north to the southern edge of Corrales and up to on the north side of, I think it's Irving and roughly Golf Course. 68 has all of Paradise Hills, half of Montana Ranch, and goes up to the Sandoval County line, Bernalillo Sandoval County line. Within Rio Rancho, District 23 starts in Corrales, has Corrales Heights and Rio Rancho, and part of High Resort to Rio Rancho, and then does cross the Rio Grande into the North Valley a little bit, down to about Paseo and I-25. District 44 is within Rio Rancho entirely, parts of River's Edge and down south between Adalia and 528. District 60 is about basically the southeastern part of Rio Rancho. District 57 is Enchanted Hills, Northern Meadows, North Hills, and Rio Rancho. Within Albuquerque West, the Heights, some fairly compact districts. In the North Valley, you have districts 11, 15. In the Heights, 25. International District is entirely within District 19, was one of the requests that we heard. And then within the, I guess, the gateway part of Albuquerque, we do have districts 21, 24, and 28. And we have the current legislators, one per those districts. And some of the other plans, they're all paired in this. Some of them are paired in this particular plan. The representatives who represent those three districts each are in their own district. That's the rest of the state. For the Northwest, I believe this was created before we saw any sort of official House plans from the Navajo Nation and the Pueblo working group. But I can still describe these districts. And just as a quick overview with respect to the voting age, there are 5, 6 Native American districts in northwestern New Mexico with a voting age Native American pop of over 60%. And one of the key characteristics here is that in order to do that, the deviations in this part of the state are they do exceed plus or minus 5% And so they're over, I think, -6% or exceed that a little bit. And that forced the deviations of the rest of the state to stay right around +3%. So District 9 is a Gallup district, Western McKinley. 6 has a Gallup as well, part of Grants Milan. Take some of the chapters within central McKinley County. District 5 has Crown Point up to Two Great Hills roughly. 4 is Shiprock, some of Farmington. District 2 has Farmington, a little bit Aztec. That's District 1. District 2 is basically Farmington. 3 is Aztec and Bloomfield, and a little bit of area south of San Juan, down into the Huerfano chapter a little bit, at least in this plan. District 65 is another Native American district extending south from Dulce, that's on the Jicarilla, and down into the Pueblos of Sandoval County through the town of Bernalillo and picking up Sandia Pueblo. And 69 is the remaining district in the Northwest, extends from Chaco down through Pueblo Pintado and parts of through and Laguna, Acoma, has the Mount Taylor area entirely within House 69, as the Alamo, part of the Navajo Nation in 69 as well, and then extends into Bernalillo and Sandoval counties into Isleta Pueblo. Isleta Pueblo is actually both Bernalillo, which is this narrow precinct here, and also in Valencia County here. So it does take both Isleta precincts within those two counties, and then adds one more precinct, which is Mesa del Sol. So as mentioned before, it does have 6 voting age Native American districts in the Northwest. So that's a really, hopefully a brief enough and not too long description of this particular plan.
Okay, thanks, Michael. So I want to go over a couple of things with regard to this map. Right, so based on the testimony that we've heard across the state, and I want to be very clear about this part, all right, that there is no point in us going and listening to the public across the state if we're not going to listen to them and do something about it. The point is not for us to decide what the people of New Mexico need, but for the people of New Mexico to tell us what they need. The New Mexico law that we are supposed to be operating under, the Senate Bill 304, sets out what we must do and what we must not do. It incorporates both the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act requirements. What we have heard from the public that have come to talk to us is the existence of vote dilution in certain parts of our state, within the Native American community, and specifically within the growing Hispanic community in the Southeast. Additionally, through parts of the South Valley, and we've heard testimony that affected minority groups are sufficiently large in this state, which is a minority majority state, to elect representation of its choice. The politically cohesive part, we can't know right now. Okay, I mean, we can't know that in these maps because we're not allowed to look at partisan data. So that part has to be put off to the side without having any data for it. All right, but in our current map, and that's why I'm not in favor of a status quo map, we have created areas of white majorities that have been created solely to defeat the candidate of choice in particular areas of the state. This status quo map, the status quo maps that we've had in the past, perpetuate disenfranchisement for voters, perpetuate Voting Rights Act issues in different parts of the state. So I'm proposing concept E to stop the disenfranchisement of the minority majority of voters in this state. The standard deviation is acceptable. The total standard deviation, according to Michael Sharp's numbers, is 9.8%. It has a mean deviation of 2.2 and a median deviation of 1.0. These are acceptable insofar as talk about what the case law is regarding these areas. Where that dilution takes place is appropriate. We fixed with the standard deviations that exist in this map. I would call this, rather than the people's map, I understand why it's called that from the group that created it, and I think that that's an important issue. But for us legally, it is a community of interest map. So this map takes into account what the communities of interest are in this state. It appropriately meets our Voting Rights Act requirements under Section 2. It comports with traditional redistricting principles, and it fixes a generational problem in this state. I do believe that we have an opportunity to do something with the House map that has not been possible for decades, if ever. And that is that the citizens of the state are choosing this map. And Michael's gone through the detail on the map. It cannot be attacked on a Voting Rights Act level. The only way this map gets attacked is on partisanship reasons. And that's just not appropriate. We shouldn't be saving things. The one part of the map that I do think is somewhat important, and it's going to be important in the other two maps that I think should be passed as well, is that while we can pair legislators if we have to, for community of interest reasons, we shouldn't pair them if we don't have to. They are elected. All right, so we can't take out people because we don't like them or they're in the wrong party. So when we look at Albuquerque on this map, Michael, would you blow up Albuquerque a little bit, please? Something generous and important happened, all right, and that's House District 17. The representative that had House District 17, I think everyone in this room would admit, Representative Debbie Armstrong was a wonderful and important, generous, kind, and well-represented her group House member. She has decided to relinquish her seat for personal reasons, and we need a new seat on the west side of the river. Her retirement allows us to put the population in check appropriately throughout Albuquerque. It gives a seat where a seat should go, which is on the west side of the river. And it allows elected people who are elected by their constituents to stay where they are in the communities that have been formed. All right, it gives the ability to have an international district that is as was requested. And so this, and I want to be very intentional about this. It's appropriate based on what we heard over and over about the west side and its growth potential. In addition, for the next 10 years, that it have another seat. It has 0.865% more population. And that's where the seat should go. 17 should be the seat that's crunched to create that. It is, lastly, on the community of interest issue, I just want to say one final thing. It is part of the reason why I really dislike a couple of the maps, is that we have certain populations that are struggling to get out of poverty, and they need their representation. We should not be taking another seat from northern New Mexico. And we don't have to. It's unnecessary. That community needs to be represented. And they gave a seat up in the last redistricting. So for these reasons, this map is appropriate. And I'd ask that the committee members consider voting to adopt it.
Any other members want to discuss this map?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Michael a question, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael, according to the sheet you provided to the committee and the public that was just shown to us, you have, I believe, 27 adult Hispanic districts,
Correct?
and the adult Native American districts is 6. That keeps it the same as it is presently, correct?
That's correct.
And the majority minority districts, does that increase, or is that that does increase, does it not?
To be honest, I don't know how many there are today exactly.
They do not increase.
So it remained the same?
Actually, what you see with this, well, let me just comment on that. What you see with this map is they actually grow the white voting age population districts. It has the largest growth compared to any other house map that is on the table.
And that was because of the growth down in the southeast portion of the state, Mr. Chairman?
No, not necessarily. I think it was because they created the 27 Hispanic districts. But
Okay.
I will say that the current districts are 29. 10 years ago, the court adopted 29 Hispanic districts. So this is too short of that.
Yeah.
But I
in
think
this
it's
map-
also is comparable to other maps.
And
Right.
in this map, the Native American districts, what percentages do we have for the BAP?
So for the
Those
Native
6
Amer-
districts?
the 6, I'll list them off by district.
Sure.
District 4, 77.9, and I have that on the screen as well, right-hand column. So you see District 4, 77.9%, District 5's at 78.9, District 6, 60.4, District 9, 66.3, District 65 is at 63.8, and then the sixth district is District 69 at 62.4%.
And Mr. Chairman and Michael, that's what the tribes basically wanted in terms of what they were talking about to us throughout, is it not?
I believe, Mr. Chair and Member Sanchez, that the tribes have targeted above 65% if possible.
I don't know that that's a true statement. I thought that was a Navajo Nation, but that the Pueblo consensus map was not always 65. Am I just missing that?
I think, Member Curtis, I think that's, my recollection might be off, but I believe that their target was 65, as close as they could get to it, even though knowing they may not be able to achieve above 65 in every district.
And Mr. Chairman, Michael, does this include the Pueblo, the Zuni issue? It does not, does it?
Member Sanchez, in this particular plan, I'll zoom into Zuni and highlight it. The precincts in Zuni are these precincts that are kind of darker. And so all of Zuni is within District 6 at the moment.
And am I right in remembering that Zuni wanted to be in two different districts?
Right. In the Pueblo consensus plan, Zuni Pueblo is in 2 different House districts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Any other committee members have anything to discuss?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Cangelosi.
Thank you, sir. I have concerns with this map. I appreciate Member Curtis's explanation. I do disagree with some of what was said with regards to hearing what people within the community. I think we heard from a lot of people in the community, and there's groups that would be uncomfortable with this map for many reasons, some of which we see what I know it's the bad word of gerrymandering, but I see districts 66, 54, 49, 65, 69, 32, all snake-like districts spreading across different 49. I mean, we're seeing what seems like gerrymandering in that regard. Deviations are greater than 5, and we're talking about comports with redistricting principles. We've always used 5%, and I know that that's been an argument. I will continue to argue that we should stay close to 5%. And concerned with the statement that status quo maps created solely white majorities to defeat people of color. I don't believe that. I think that we have districts, I think research and polling, from what I can tell with the maps that they put out, A, B, C, really looked at what we've heard throughout all of our meetings of communities of interest, but also using what Representative Mo Maestas came and talked about, using the Rio Grande River as a barrier and many other things like that. And I think that those maps that we have, another thing that I'm disappointed that I did not bring up last week, and I just wanted on the record, is that when this committee was created, it was created to draw maps without looking at any partisan or performance data, which research and polling did. They took the data that we have gotten throughout all of our public meetings throughout the state, and then used professional principles of redistricting and drawing lines and built these maps, our concepts. And the thing that I can say with all assurance is that I know that our CRC maps were drawn without partisan or performance data being considered. The Center for Civic Policies map, I cannot say with a surety that that was done, that the people who drew those maps didn't use partisan or performance data when creating those maps. And so I'm going to vote no on this map. I don't agree with this map. And I'm going to stick to the CRC's maps that were drawn by research and polling, who we hired to follow all the principles of the legislation outlined in what we are responsible for doing. I really do want to have a process that is nonpartisan, that we come in here, we look at maps, we listen to people. And I do appreciate the group that came out to almost every meeting. They were very well organized. I appreciate their efforts. I don't agree totally with what they're communicating, but I do understand politics very, very well. And I think that what we see here in this map is a partisan map meant to make a majority in the House, a super majority in the House. And I don't know that to be the truth because I have not looked at partisan data, but from just looking at it, that is what I'm taking from it. So I will be voting no on this map. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cangelosi. Anybody else want to comment on the map?
Yes, may I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Salcedo.
And before I do so, actually, Michael, can I ask you a question? Just so that I understand, frankly, because maybe I don't, adult majority minority districts, how is that calculated?
Mr. Salcedo, basically it's any district that is less than 50% non-Hispanic white and is not also a Hispanic or Native American majority. So it's basically no single group makes up a majority of the district, and the percent white is less than 50%. So there's basically a plurality in those districts of Hispanic population.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I guess then I did understand it. And I'll just say, I don't understand this map. I will also say it's not my least favorite map either. And maybe that's what I don't understand. I do not understand all of the public comment we received for and against this map. Because I just don't get it. You know, you add up the adult Hispanic districts, adult majority minority districts, yeah, 40. almost every other map we have has more than 40 of combined of those two categories. 6 Native American districts. I think that's appropriate. So I just don't get it. Why does this map accomplish what others do not? So that concerns me, I guess. With that, the negative deviation of 6.6 definitely concerns me as well. So, you know, I have no reason to say, here's the problem here. Here, I want to attack this map. I want to tell you why this was done improperly. I just don't get it. But we've had a lot of comment on it, which tells me there's something out there I don't know. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Salcedo. Anybody else want to comment on this map?
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael Sanchez.
Yes, sir.
Let me first say that I appreciate the discussion of everybody today, and I disagree with Ms. Curtis on one hand and agree with Ryan on one hand, not their ultimate decisions on how they're going to vote. But I think maybe it could have been worded a little better in terms of whether or not this was intended or the past has been intended to keep a white majority. I don't believe that was done intentionally, and I always believe the best in our state and the people who tried to do these maps in the end. So in that respect, I agree with Mr. Canzalosi and disagree with Lisa. Their ultimate decisions, I agree with Lisa and disagree with Ryan on that. And let me tell you why. And he makes a very interesting point about the partisanship of maps. There is no doubt that that probably the proponents of the maps are looking at things differently than we're looking at it. But I will say the opponents of the maps do the same thing. They're looking at things that we're not looking at. And that was really evident down in southeastern New Mexico when people came out very strongly against the congressional maps and the House maps. I mean, it was pretty apparent that they were looking at something a lot different than what we're supposed to be looking at. And so in that respect, I don't think one should conclude that that we can't take their positions into consideration because they may be looking at something differently than we are looking at. This map, to me, protects our Hispanic population, probably not as much as I would like. It definitely protects the Native American population. Again, possibly not as much as I would like. I disagree again with Mr. Canzalosi, and I don't know why I keep messing up your name, Ryan. I'll just call you Ryan.
Just go.
That this is set up to have a super majority in the House. I don't see it, but again, I could be dead wrong. And just looking at the map and the way things have played out over the past 10 years. But I think this is consistent, and the deviation, again, I know some people want to keep to the minus and plus 5%. But in the case law that I'm familiar with and that I've read, it's the 10% that really matters, and keeping it under or at the 10%. You know, nothing is absolutely perfect ever. The legislature is going to have a chance to look at any and all of the maps that we put forth. And if they feel that something should be different, I personally feel that we should have incorporated the Zuni issue in here, but we didn't. So maybe the legislature will look at that and take what they were looking at very seriously and make the appropriate changes. But I'm going to vote in favor of this map for the reasons I've stated. Again, I respect everybody's opinion, and I really like Chris's discussion in terms of he likes the map. I'm not sure if he likes the map. I think that's kind of what everybody's going through on all of these maps. There's good things, there's maybe not so good things, but everything I see here protects those groups that I'm interested in and the state of New Mexico as well. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this map. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Member Michael Sanchez. Anybody else want to comment on this map? Joaquin?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just two things I wanted to point to in reaction to something that Member Cangelosi said. One is that the maps that we got from research and polling, my understanding is, and it's, I think it's the way we use them, those were points of departure. Those were not to be necessarily base maps for our process. So they were to spur public input and conversation so that we could get maps drawn by the people. So that to me was not, I'm okay with where this went and how the process went. I think that's the way it was supposed to work. And then the other, I know that we, I think Member Radigan in the last meeting asked, you know, are we okay with the plus or minus 5% versus 10%? And the reason I'm fine with the deviations on this map is that equity and equality cannot be confused. And sometimes to reach equity, that means making different types of investments. I've learned that both as a parent and as a teacher and as an organizer. So I am okay with the deviations. And for all of the reasons that have been stated by others, I will also be supporting this map.
Any other members want to comment?
Mr. Chair, I'll just add that throughout this process, and in particular over the last few weeks as we evaluated these concepts, I've really struggled with the issue of partisanship and felt hamstrung by the Redistricting Act, Senate Bill 304, which precludes us from taking partisanship into consideration. And Member Cangelosi raises a good point about the intent of anybody other than research and polling who's working under our instructions and under the constraints of the Redistricting Act, not to consider partisanship, but it is quite possible that a map submitted by an outside entity could have taken partisanship and probably did take partisanship into consideration. However, I think this map does take into account an overwhelming amount of the input that we've heard from around the state. And I do share your concern, Mr. Cangelosi, about the partisan nature. However, the current configuration of the House is nearly a 2-to-1 majority. So if we were worried about partisanship, I would equally consider that with any status quo map, that if the intent is for one party to maintain a nearly 2-to-1 advantage, then all we would need to do is make no change to any of the House maps. So for that reason, as I'm going to set aside partisanship as the law requires me to do, and I will make my vote accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I think that's everybody has commented. I'd like to comment a little bit because there's other testimony that I think we need to take into consideration as we're evaluating this map. First, on the deviations, plus or minus 5. I even commented on some of the maps that, you know, our goal is a plus or minus 5% based on historically what New Mexico has done. The law previously, or the guidelines previously, were written as plus or minus 5%, which meant you could not exceed a negative 5% or exceed a positive 5%. I drafted the first draft of the bill that created this committee, and that had the same language, plus or minus 5%. The legislature deliberately thought about changing that to a maximum of 10%. I still made that comment to some of the maps because I think it's important for those who are proposing that we exceed that historical threshold or target, that they justify it. And I thought the Native American population did an excellent job of coming forth and explaining in a lot of detail the strength of their VRA claims. And so I'm persuaded that we can deviate accordingly, as long as we don't exceed 10%. The other thing I've noticed about this map, and I've looked at what maps we're going to look at in the future, is the outer boundaries of the northwest portion or region of the state are pretty similar to what both the Pueblo Apache consensus map and the Navajo Nation map have. I think this one adds Cuba, whereas the others do not. And then there's a little bit at the upper corner of District 41 that is different. I think that purple one that is nearest at the very top of 41 is not in the Native American plans. So it's pretty close to the outer boundaries. Next thing I would say is that Las Vegas is really the only group that has commented on this map in a specific way. I know we have a lot of debate going on, but specifically what the Acequias say is that they do not like the fact that District 63 reaches all the way up to Las Vegas. And I believe their comment was that it actually splits Las Vegas at Grand Avenue. What they have proposed is a version of this same map, except what they would do is they would stop District 63 at Guadalupe County. They would not let it go into San Miguel County. That is map P5656. The other thing they did is for District 40, I believe they excluded Raton, and they expressed their rationale for doing that. So 67 would grow into Raton, as I recall. And we can pull it up if anybody wants to check my memory on this. So they've made this specific request that we not allow it to split Las Vegas. You could go to Garcia, just type in Arthur Garcia. There you go. So you see they stop at Guadalupe County. And then you can see up here 67 captures Raton. And that is my impression of the only changes that were offered by the Acequia Association. The consequence of stopping 63 at Guadalupe County is it reduces the Hispanic voting age population there. I believe it goes down to 58%. Let me see if I can take a look. There you go. Yeah, so 59%, whereas the Center for Civic Policy map has it at closer to 62%. So it reduces that. District 63 happens to be the district that was also protected by the New Mexico Supreme Court 10 years ago. And I would like to see a higher VAP than what is proposed by the Acequias. But I will say that what they have proposed is comparable to what was available 10 years ago. 10 years ago, after sending it back down, the court increased the Hispanic VAP to 57%. And we see that on this one, if it's modified, it's got it at 58.9. Was that right, Michael? Yeah, 58.9. So it's better than 10 years ago, but not as good as 60. I think you could probably increase it if you don't mind going into San Miguel County and capturing that small precinct that is right above Guadalupe County, the one next to it, and then those those three precincts, I think you could almost get to 60% if you wanted to do that. But in my mind, it doesn't change the rest of the map, including the Albuquerque area. They also, the Acequia has also expressed interest in House District 14, which is Representative Garcia's. But this map actually takes care of it for the most part. It's not precisely the same, but it does cross a river into Barrelas. And so that I think is would be responsive to Representative Garcia. So I just wonder if Member Curtis would accept a friendly motion to substitute map 5606 for this one. Keeping in mind also that what's important is that what the Center for Civic Policy has told us in their commentary is that they plan on altering their map based on any consensus that is reached between the I guess Navajo Nation, Pueblos, and Apache tribes. So there could be some changes, but I think they're going to be subtle given that the boundaries are almost the same. I think a lot of the disagreement is probably within the interior of the outer boundaries of the Northwest region and what I will call the Native American districts. So I put that out there for Member Curtis to think about.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would second your motion to place this map because of the acequias in place of regular E for the reasons that you stated. And obviously the acequias have done a lot of work to try to take the map that they also thought was best, but make sure that certain parts of the map that affected them very dramatically were exactly as they would wish them to be. And what they've requested is obviously reasonable. No one testified opposite of that. I have one question for Michael, just on the idea of, I didn't look at this map for whether it paired particular districts or not. I just don't know between 40 and 70 based on the way this is arranged. If it does anything to 67, I wouldn't think so, but I just wonder if Michael could answer that question for us real quick.
Member Curtis, one moment, please. So this is the Acequia modified concept E. So in terms of pairings, it looks, I think it's the same as concept E. There's 0 Democrat versus Democrat pairings. There's the 2 Republican pairings in 3849 and House 59 and 66. And then there are the 2 D versus R pairings in House districts 2344 and 15 and 31. So I think that's the same as concept E.
So my point in asking the question was to make sure that there was no ill intent on the part of the acequias to get rid of any particular person with the way that they do the map. So obviously that was not part of their intent. So so I think your motion is reasonable, Mr. Chair, and I would second that motion.
Okay, I think Member Joaquin Sanchez would have to agree since he seconded your motion.
So I have not had a chance to look at what the Acequia did to modify that. So without doing that, I would prefer to keep the map E and our original motion.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to comment on is partisanship of this map. I can't tell you if it's a partisan map or not, but once we adopt maps, we are sending them to Professor Cottrell for him to do a partisan fairness evaluation on every map we adopt. And so I just ask the committee to remember that the partisanship will be taken a look at. Okay,
Mr.
if
Chairman.
I'm not mistaken,
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
yes,
on a point of procedure, I believe if the individual who wishes to withdraw the motion can do that at any time without having the person who seconded the motion also agree. It's the proponent who is requesting the motion and the adoption of the motion. And the only thing that might need to happen is that she requests a motion to withdraw her Plan E, and she gets a second on that. But she can withdraw, and I don't think she needs a second to do that.
I see. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate you. You've been at this a lot longer than me. I've been at it almost 4 months. So, Member Curtis.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let me, I really want to honor what Member Joaquin Sanchez said about wanting to have enough information to make a decision. I wonder if there's something that we might be able to do that would help answer any questions that you have, Member Sanchez, about the acequia map, so that you could feel like you understand what's been done exactly. Even to the point of taking a break so you have a chance to really look at it. You've done your job so diligently through this process, and I just want to be, I understand what the procedures are and what groups can do, but we have worked really collegially up to this point. And, you know, taking some time seems appropriate. If that would be helpful to you. Would that be helpful?
It could, and I guess let me, if okay, let me just briefly share part of my, I don't know quite how, it was a challenge that I had in our last meeting. So let me just put that out there. And then if there is the ability to take a little bit more time to look at this, then I would appreciate that. So, so part of what I did not like in our last conversation, and I appreciated many parts of it. I appreciated our candor and our ability to be in the conversation with each other. But it seemed like when we set aside the Pueblo map for the congressional, because we thought we were coming back to it, and then the decision later was made to put forward the PEC map that was really driven by the Navajo Human Rights Commission, that we were holding groups to a different standard, because in one sense, in one conversation, we said we needed a consensus of all of the nations, and then another one, we were okay with one driving it. And so if we're going to adopt a base map that can be altered and modified, I guess one question is, does the base map allow enough for that to happen in the legislature, or is it right now important to do that with the acequia map? So I guess those are a couple of things that I'm just trying to figure out and square in my own mind. And I apologize that I didn't bring this up in the last one. This is why I would never make a good trial attorney. For me, it's like I think about these at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's the reason I just can't kind of make a snap judgment like that. And I apologize for that.
Well, so I think, Mr. Chair, I think that it is, I think that it would be a good idea from a discussion standpoint for Member Sanchez to ask any questions of our experts at research and polling, or to have the very, very specific differences explained in great detail between map E and this map, to see whether Member Sanchez feels like he has enough information to understand and vote on the map with some level of certainty. Unfortunately, I know, I don't believe in time constraints. I don't care if we're here till 3 in the morning. I want to make sure we do it right. Okay? I want to do it right. I know not everybody may agree with me about the 3 in the morning thing, but I just want to make sure we do it right. So, Member Sanchez, would you be interested in a little more time and maybe some explanation from our experts to see whether
Yes.
this map is comfortable?
Yes, I would appreciate that.
Michael, this is Ed. Can you put them up side by side?
You bet. 1 second, please.
And by the way, Joaquin, you don't have to apologize for anything. I dream about cases at 3 and 4 in the morning and get up at 5 to try to figure it out. So you don't have to apologize for anything, believe me.
I wrote
Thank you.
4 emails at 2:30 this morning on cases, so I'm with you.
Okay, so we should see on the left the acequia plan based on concept D, and then on the right, concept E. And so was the question, what are the differences? And then any
Yes.
other questions you may have. I don't know all the the differences right off the top of my head, but I can just kind of pan around and zoom and find them and try to let you know what they are. Or it could give me a couple minutes to and then come back to you. But I mean, the biggest difference just right off the top is what was mentioned earlier with House 63 was it doesn't go as far north into San Miguel County. That's the most obvious difference between the two.
And what does that do to the voting age population?
So with respect to the, in terms of percent Hispanic,
Yes, sir.
okay, then in the acequia plan, it is in House 63.
Everything, I will have food here. in-
Excuse me,
it
House
should have been
63,
there.
it's 58,
It's already on its way.
Okay.
It's already on its way.
58.9 on the acequia plan. And then on the right map, it's the map on the right at 63 is at 61.9. So the change reduces that by about 3 percentage points in House 63.
Portion does it cut out? That portion of-
There are probably some changes. 63 will have to add some population, and my guess is it's probably in the Clovis Portales area.
Mhm. Yeah, see, they did.
So
Actually kept it to about 5 or 6 districts. Yeah.
County line here? That's not the county line.
Michael, could you turn on the county lines, please?
okay, I think, I'm sorry, I missed that last comment.
If you could just turn on the county lines, please.
Okay,
Yeah, they're right on the.
okay. I think there were some changes within the Clovis area. Just between 63 and 67 to make the numbers work. Try to get them about the same size.
Yeah, they took out of Curry County, there, that left side where you have your hand. They did that because on the top side of 67, they went into Raton.
Mhm.
Right, and it looks like House 63 added the Southern Cannon Air Force Base precinct within Clovis. So because 63 did lose some of that population in San Miguel County, though there's not a lot in here in the middle part of San Miguel. It just probably needed enough to kind of balance things out, and that combined with the Raton just caused some changes in this area.
So go up to where 67 meets 40.
Okay, so I'm in the Acequia plan now,
Yes.
and then and 63 did add Melrose in southwestern Curry County. Right, so the second did add, went into Colfax County, into kind of the outskirts of Raton, about, up to the highway, kind of around town, and then roughly the highway up into the pass.
But Michael, this is Brian. Don't both plans in House District 40 have Raton?
Yes.
So what is that, the drop in the Hispanic VAP in what was the number again? The one we were looking.
In the Acequia plan, it's 58.9 in House 63.
House 63.
Correct.
And so where does that get picked up? Where does that get picked up then? What impact does that have on the other districts around it? Does that get increased somewhere else?
So with respect to the Hispanic population, a couple things impact House 63. The precincts in San Miguel County will be Hispanic, so it lost some of the Hispanic precincts in San Miguel County. And then it also added, I'm going to just highlight it, the Melrose precinct in Curry County, which is not Hispanic. There's not a very large Hispanic population. So you did remove some higher Hispanic precincts, added some precincts that are less Hispanic. On the other hand, you did add the Air Force Base within, I'm going to switch maps. So within the Acequia plan, you did add the southern precinct of the Air Force Base. It's a lot of population, but few voters. So that probably lowered the percent Hispanic a little bit in House 63.
Okay. And is that really the primary change? Is that the main change between the two?
I think those are the biggest of just how 67 is in or out of Colfax County in terms of outside of Raton, the San Miguel County area, central San Miguel County, and within southwestern Curry, Cannon Air Force Base, and maybe a precinct or two within Clovis that swaps some districts.
Okay.
With respect to the districts in this part of the state, yeah.
All right. So no, this is helpful. And again, Member Curtis, thank you for suggesting this. So I think if those are the main changes, then as I understand, consensus is, can you live with it? And so yes, I can. So if we want to proceed to some kind of a decision, I'm good for that.
Okay, I really appreciate your thoughtfulness Member Sanchez, I realize that Member Salcedo is not in the room right now, so it'll, I'm gonna ask our esteemed ethics employee who's with us to go see if he can round up Mr. Salcedo, so we can move forward.
I'm sure he's around here somewhere.
It's,
Um,
I don't-
Pull him out. of the
assuming he
background.
did not run away.
Pull him out of the background.
Oh, he's right there.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's not a problem. Okay, so Mr. Chair, given Mr. Sanchez, his comments, are we ready to vote, or do we have other discussion you would
I
like?
think we are ready to vote. Let me try to state this for the record for Mike Kiley, who does our minutes. Member Curtis has withdrawn her motion to adopt House Concept E. And instead, Chair has moved to have Concept E modified by the Acequia Association, which is map P 5606. And is there a second?
Mr. Chair?
I-
This
Yes.
is Michael.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I believe that the SECU plan is.
5656.
Yes,
Thank you, Michael.
you're welcome.
Yes, so it would be Concept E as modified by the Acequias, which is ID P 5656.
And yes,
Is there a second?
I second.
And Mr. Joaquin Sanchez seconds the motion. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, could it be referred to as concept E1 as opposed to the number that you have?
Sure, that'd be fine with me. I just wanted the number so that if the public wanted to access it on Districtor, they would know how to do so.
Sure, whatever you feel comfortable with, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's keep it as ID P 5656 so that the public will be able to find it. And we will post it if it is adopted.
And
And if
I'd
not, I'll
ask
put it
if
in
it-
map concepts either way, so.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, I would ask that if adopted, that we put it as concept E-1. For my personal, being able to follow what we're doing, I need, that clarity would be very helpful for me.
You know what? I agree with you. I think it'll be easier for the public when they go down in our website to find it that way. So we will label it, if it is adopted, as concept E-1. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call on concept E-1. Cangelosi,
No.
Curtis,
Yes,
Radigan,
Yes,
Joaquin Sanchez,
Yes,
Michael Sanchez,
Yes,
Member Salcedo,
No,
Chairman votes yes. Okay, we have one map, one house map that is being adopted. Okay, who would like to make the next motion? Either decline the state or a Republican member of the committee.
find a state. Find a state.
Decline the state
Chairman.
member.
Mr.
Well-
Chairman, if I can, to get the discussion going, let's try House Concept A. I would move House Concept A. I may not get a
Okay.
second.
It's been moved that House Concept A be adopted by member Michael Sanchez. Is there a second?
Remember this one. Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, seconded by member Salcedo. So let's put that on the table for discussion. The only thing I would alert everyone to at the outset is, well, that's okay. Any discussion?
No, but I would like to know what your thought was. But, I
Well,
this
I had
along.
actually liked concept A, but I had research and polling go through the trouble of incorporating the Pueblo Apache consensus map, integrating it into what was concept D. I can explain why I did that, and they've done so. And the same thing with the Navajo Nation map. That way we would have maps that we'd be able to recommend to the legislature that include information from the Native Americans. But I'm willing to talk about concept A. The one thing concept A does not do is District 40 is something that we drew on the basis of testimony that we received in Las Vegas. And they did not want to do across the Sangre de Cristo, as I recall, and so that's why we do it this way. But they've changed their mind completely on that. And the reasons they've advanced have been several, keeping the community of interest. But if by not going across to the Sangre de Cristos, you end up giving up a seat, a northern seat. And so I think that's why they changed their minds about that.
So, Mr.
Whereas
Chairman,
concept D does take 40 across the Sangre de Cristo.
so
Did I
Mr.
get that
Mr.
right,
Chairman,
Michael?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just real quick, is this the concept that we lose a House seat in northern New Mexico?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes,
Can I withdraw my motion?
and withdraw.
I will withdraw my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I don't get a say, right?
No.
I would like to see concept D with the Pueblo consensus. So I make a motion that we go to concept D with the Pueblo consensus, which is
Is
House
that
District Concept I.
Aye.
Second,
Who seconded that?
Mr. Radigan.
Okay. Then moved by the chair that concept I be adopted for recommendation to the legislature, and member Radigan has seconded the motion. Michael Sharp, would you mind going over the details of the map with us?
Sure thing, Mr. Chair. Add some district numbers here. Okay. So what we did at the request of the chair was to basically start with concept D, and one of the reasons I think was because we kept House districts 40 and 70 in the north central part of the state. It was one of the main drivers of concept D to start with. And so you can see just statewide that 40 and 70 are preserved within north central New Mexico. And in this particular plan, we did drop in the Pueblo Jicarilla consensus northwest into the state. And what I like to do is just kind of describe the rest of the state, and then we can briefly describe the northwest as well. So you can see that 40 and 70 north central is part of the state, 42, 41, 42 is Taos, 41 is Espanola, primarily Tierra Maria, and 40 is Mora up into Raton. So it's similar to what is in the Acequia plan that was just, I guess, passed by the committee. House 70 is more of a San Miguel County, but it does lose some population in northern San Miguel County, Sapeo, one of the communities that does go into 40. So it does cross the county line between Mora and San Miguel counties. Southern southwestern San Miguel County does go into District 63. So the other difference between the previous two plans and this one is the shape of House 63. It it does try to maintain a relatively high or higher Hispanic population, and its adult Hispanic population is 60.9. And we're able to do that because we do go into Eastern Torrance County and Southern San Miguel County, and we do not add Melrose into House 63. So that's one of the things we were able to do, is just try to keep the percent Hispanic adults in House 63 above 60%. Within southeastern New Mexico, we have fairly compact districts, some strong Hispanic districts again in House 58 based in Roswell and House 61 based in Hobbs. 61 does go into southern Eddy County and pulls in Loving, but it doesn't go as far into Carlsbad as it does today. So it kind of pulls out of Eddy County a little bit. 55 is entirely within Eddy County. 54 is a little bit of some of Carlsbad, all of Artesia, southern Chavez counties. And so, like I said, 58 and 61 are the stronger Hispanic in the southern part of New Mexico. We've had House 51, today it's as mentioned earlier, it's an Alamogordo district. In this particular plan, it's Alamogordo plus Cloudcroft plus kind of the rural mountainous eastern parts of Otero County. And north of that is Ruidoso and Tularosa, and kind of northern parts of Alamo and Mescalero are in House 56. The rest of Lincoln outside of Ruidoso does go into a district with Roswell. Just like we have today, House 63 maintains kind of close its chaparral into southern Alamogordo orientation. And so it does go up into Alamogordo. It doesn't really have Holloman. House 34 goes from Sunland Park into Anthony. It used to go up further up the Mesilla Valley, but in this case, it's a little more compact and stays as more of a southern district. House 52 is pretty close to what you have today, just expanded north a little bit, and to both sides of Highway 70. So you have Oregon and White Sands kind of in the same districts within this plan. 35 Central Las Cruces district, as is 36. 37 is a northeastern Las Cruces district. 38 Southwestern district into the Mesilla Valley, into Barreno, north of Anthony. 32 is Lordsburg and Deming, and takes the southern part of Grant County. Just for those who sometimes want to know, well, why do the districts sometimes, when you're combining Lordsburg and Deming, why does the district sometimes go down here and it just follow this little neck? The reason is there's a county line here. And so sometimes in some of the plans, you might see this funny little neck. Well, you're following the county lines, but that's just, those are other plans. Just wanted to mention that little side note. But in this case, it does go through Grant County, follows the freeway, follows the railroad between Deming and Lordsburg. 39 and other plans, it had all of Grant County. It did lose some of that population, so it had to add population instead, and that it picked it up from Reserve in Catron County, which is this rough square. So 39 does move north. These are both Gila Wilderness based counties, and so they're combined into one district. 38 does go from Elephant Butte and TRC into Las Cruces, the other side of the freeway in Sierra County, and goes up into Socorro and Magdalena and into southern Valencia County. One change from what you have in today's districts is that House 49 does go further into Valencia County than it does today. So if I added the current districts, this black line represents the current House 49 boundary. And you can see how, because House 49 lost population on the southern edge, they made Catron County and Reserve, that it had to pick up population somewhere. And so it did move further into Valencia County, and now all of Belen is entirely within one district. So it's united within District 49. But it does go up almost to Los Chavez. And 8's pretty similar today, 7 similar today, though 8 does pick up some precincts in the Peralta area. And does take a few from 7. 7 had to get bigger. And because of lost population to 8, lost population to 7, it takes some of Valencia and goes into southwestern Torrance County. That's Mountain Air. Talked about the North Central already. Los Santa Fe districts, compact Central Santa Fe districts, with 47 taking Eastern Santa Fe, Northern Santa Fe plus Tesuque. 45 has Tierra Contenta. 48 is like a Central Santa Fe down to north between Cerrillos Road and the river. Whereas 46 starts in Espanola and goes south and wraps around and picks up Las Campanas. District 43 is Los Alamos District. Los Alamos is entirely within House 43, along with Jemez Springs and La Cienega in southwest of Santa Fe. House 50 is kind of hard to tell, but there's a slight, let me turn on the county boundaries. So House 50 does stop at the county line of Santa Fe County, and it includes El Dorado, down includes all of Edgewood, all of Placitas, and a few precincts in the East Mountains. House 22 is Moriarty, kind of a northeastern Torrance County, East Mountains, and then into the heights of Albuquerque.
All right, Michael, I'm gonna stop you right there for a second, because I think there was some question about this map. I asked that right where you are right now be looked at, because I felt like here where you're at, that there was, especially because the map crunches a seat already in Albuquerque, and 17, that there should be sufficient population that went into the Northeast Heights, that we were capable of creating an international district without disfiguring the rest of the Heights and unnecessarily pairing legislators. And so I asked, I think what it is, concept I, Pueblo Consensus Northwest integrated map with CRC member request.
Aha.
Okay, this is my request, which frankly, I've had this request for about a month and a half. Okay, but we're waiting to see what the Pueblos came in with, so that the map could be as tight as possible. It's map 67300. I would like if you would explain what that map, how that map is different from what you just explained to us for concept I.
Thank you, Member Curtis. So I just brought that one up on the screen. And I can, I'm going to stop the share and then I'll reshare and put them side by side.
Okay.
Is concept I or D?
I. And then
But
there's
it's
just,
kind of like
then there's a second I.
It's like I3, I think, or 2, 3, 2. Is it, you know, it's a correct one with parents, 0, 2, 2 is basically how it goes. This one is 1, 2.
Okay, so on the left is the original concept I, state in Mexico, plus the Pueblo Hickory consensus in the northwest part of the state. And the only difference between the two plans is that, so on the left is the original concept I, on the right is modified with the title CRC member request. And there are two precincts that change. And it's this one little precinct right here. Representative Thompson represents House 24, and that was added to 24. So then that created an imbalance in population, and to balance that back out, so everything is, so no district is more than 3% positive deviation, we added this precinct north of I-40 into 21. So it swapped this little precinct for this precinct. And that's the only change.
Okay, thank you. So my issue with concept I is because the Northeast Heights, and I understand it, balancing population is difficult, but with losing the 17 and moving it, we should be able to equalize population sufficient that we're not disturbing unnecessarily or pairing legislators. And so and those and I with the ultimate outcome of making sure that we have a community of interest that is kept together in the international district. And so I'd ask that we maintain concept I, which actually is concept D changed, right? Okay, but that we use concept I 67300 in its place,
Which is the one on the right.
which is the one on the right. Yes. So
So
that would be my motion.
if I understand what you're saying is you made a request and the net effect of that request was to unpair Thompson. Is that correct?
I think it impairs 21 and 24. So not necessarily one legislator over the other, it just unpairs those legislators.
Representative.
That wasn't a huge change, so so I'd be agreeable. Anything, I don't think it violates any other redistricting principles to unpair them. So I would agree to go to 67,300 as the map under discussion.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got to do this. I've just got to do this.
Okay.
Michael,
Yes, Mr. Son.
What-
Yes,
what-
ma'am.
what in-
It is, isn't it?
what in the world did you do to Valencia County?
Well,
What and how are we going? How is 49 coming up and going all the way to TRC? And then we're going into Torrance County in 7th. I mean, goodness gracious, but this is a Pueblo consensus amended. I mean, what is the purpose? Because if I'm wrong, if I'm not wrong, the Valencia County has 80,000 people population wise. So that's for 2.5, right? Basically.
right.
So instead of moving us, I guess, to Torrance County and keeping, I guess you're keeping Los Lunas whole,
Correct.
more or less. And you're
More or
moving,
less.
49 close to Los Chavez, where I
Yes.
live. Makes it fun. Ryan's gonna help me on that one. I mean, do you have any idea why this was done that way? I mean, is there any rational reason that it was done that way?
Well, I would say the challenge is that it all started in southwestern New Mexico. And what happens with 49 and 38 and 39 and where 49 used to be. 49 used to have Catron County. And the way the population worked out in southwestern New Mexico in Doña Ana County and keeping the districts relatively the way they are now within Doña Ana County, that forced some changes with 38, it forced some changes with 39. 39 had to go up into reserve in Catron County, taking away that population from 49, and that 49 had to go somewhere. And so instead of going into Carrizozo or reserve, it went further into Valencia County. So it already has Belen and now it has the rest of Belen. But that's the main rationale. It's kind of a population pressure. It's one of the challenges that we've encountered, at least in this particular map, to take into account trying to keep every district less than plus 3% deviation. It's just That's just one of the challenges that we had in this particular area. And it's a different orientation in Las Cruces and southwestern New Mexico and that Force 49 North.
Mr. Chairman, Michael, I guess my frustration is even 10 years ago, we're kind of always in the middle and we're always the ones that are either being pushed in or out. I mean, for no particular reason. And I'm not talking about any type of partisanship, but you're working from the corners in and Valencia County somehow gets squeezed whichever way people want it to. I mean, we're going past Mountain Air into whatever that little knot is. Oh, I mean, what is that, Punta de Agua, or where is that actually?
And these two precincts are Mountain Air. And it goes close to Willard, but not into Willard.
I don't imagine you drive there when you gotta leave the district to get.
And I actually drive that road a lot because I go to Estancia and back in there, Mountain Air, you know, but I don't know if I could vote for either one of those concepts, but, and that's just being selfish about Valencia County, I'm sorry. Just, it just doesn't make sense that Valencia County is getting pushed around and really in a way that to me is just not acceptable, but it is what it is. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Michael, would you say it's fair to say that currently Berlin is split, but under this plan, Berlin is unified and becomes one of the population bases of 49 rather than being split 2 or 3 ways in the past?
Yeah, Brian, right now, I think it's split between 3 House districts. I think Rio Communities is split between 2. And so just one, if there's one positive take is that Berlin is entirely within one district, it's not split, and Rio Communities is also not split anymore. It's entirely within one district.
And similarly with Los Lunas?
And Los Lunas, I think technically Los Lunas does cross the river. It's a little bit onto the east side of the river. The vast majority of its population is on the west side, but today it is currently split and it is still split in this plan.
Right.
Very little across the river.
Mhm. So it's supposed to be better, right?
In the sense that, yeah, there's one representative, I guess it is, but I just don't. To tell you the truth, oh well, it is what it is. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, Frank, I'm glad you continue to raise it, and I think you're right. It's an unfortunate consequence of geography and the way we go about drawing these maps that Valencia County just gets squeezed because we start at the edges, we come in, so much going on in Albuquerque. You've got the Isleta Pueblo to consider, and so it's difficult to start from what Valencia County was. But I'm glad that you continue to raise it. I don't know what we do about it.
Maybe the legislature will take care of it, right?
This is Brian. I think Mr. Radigan also brought up a good point. So not only do you start in the corners and move up, but besides Berlin being unified, the other challenge is that this plan, which is taking the Pueblo consensus plan and inserting it in, then creates a hard wall, if you will, a geographic boundary with Isleta and portions of Valencia County. So all of it has to fit into that particular regional concept.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman and Brian, I understand what Isleta is doing. I mean, they want to stay in 69. I understand that. I think that's where they're at right now, if I'm not wrong. But it's just difficult to see it happening that way. But again, it's a consensus map, a Pueblo consensus map with the amendment, and so we'll go forward.
Okay, any further discussion on concept I as modified by 67,300.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So if, again, I know that we're intentionally wanting to limit the number of maps, and that makes an abundance of sense to me. Is this the only map that we're considering that has the Pueblo consensus in it?
Yes.
Okay.
The only other option is the Native American map, which is J, and I was just taking a peek at it to see if what it does to Valencia County. And I didn't focus in on it. But I would say this. I promised Member Curtis that we would recess close to 5 for just a break because she has to briefly attend a commission on the status of women meeting. I think now is a good time to break. Is that okay with everyone?
That makes sense to me.
Does that help, Member Curtis?
Yeah, that would be terrific. I appreciate everybody's indulgence. I'll be back just as quick as I can. Meeting starts at 5, should only be 5 minutes. Since I learned to recess meetings.
Famous last words.
All right, let's take 15 minutes or so. Thank you, everyone.
unmute so the public
Banana
can
bread.
catch wind of this pie recommendation because Village Inn has free pie on Wednesdays.
So
Yeah,
apple
there you
pie
go.
with
They
ice
do.
cream.
Coffee, yeah.
They do.
It's an important PSA.
Many a college student know that they can get a piece of pie.
I didn't find out until
my.
my final semester.
I
and
didn't know
regretted it
that
so
word.
much.
Oh, it's
I
been around
missed
since
this.
you and I were in
I
college.
know.
I did not
Looks like
know.
we're all back.
Yes.
Oh, we're ready.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Okay, we were, any further discussion on the adoption of concept I as revised by member Curtis in map 67-300? I guess we'll call this concept I-1. There being none. Cangelosi,
No.
Curtis,
Yes,
Radigan,
Yes.
Joaquin Sanchez,
Yes.
Michael Sanchez,
No,
Salcedo,
No,
chair votes yes. So we have two concepts moving forward. Need another motion?
I'll go ahead and jump in this time. That's okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes, absolutely.
So I move for concept C. And I will say, I'm moving for concept C, one, because I think it makes sense. And two, I think it makes sense for the committee. It's an option, it's a reasonable option, and I hope I am correct because I try to listen to many other concerns and not move forward a map perhaps that I liked, but I know others had a problem with. So C. What I like about this map and why I think it fits with what we're doing, just compared to the other two maps that we have already moved forward. If you compare the adult Hispanic districts and the adult majority minority districts, this one has a combined 43 districts. That's more than the other two. 42 for the last one, 40 for the, what was it, E. And it does so staying within the plus or minus 5%. It does have some pairings, nothing extreme. And there was an extreme one out there, so I didn't even bother to talk about it. So C.
Okay, member Salcedo has moved that we adopt concept House District Concept C for recommendation to the legislature. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by member Cangelosi. Any discussion on concept C? Would you like to have Michael go over the details?
Please.
Michael?
Thank
Michael
you.
Sharp, not Michael Sanchez.
We're starting Valencia.
We'll start in
County.
Valencia County.
Well, maybe I should start in Valencia County.
Let's not. Let's get some momentum.
Let's get some momentum.
I'm giving up.
Well, thank you. So the one of the primary objectives in Plan C was, we talked about moving different districts from different parts of the state to the west side because the west side has experienced growth, and one way to accommodate that growth is to have a new seat emerge on the west side somewhere. And in this particular case, the seat that moved over to the west side was 24. And so 24 used to be in the southeast side's kind of not south, but kind of the gateway area. And now it moved up into Rio Rancho. So the west side, if you consider the west side a bigger picture to be Rio Rancho plus the Ventana Ranch and all the way down to Westgate is the west side. 24 does move into Rio Rancho. And so the entire area west of the river does gain a new seat. And that did force some changes within the Bernalillo County, Sandoval County area. House 23 used to be in Corrales. Now it's entirely out of Corrales because 24 went into Rio Rancho. It pushed 23 south. So today it's kind of a Coors into Corrales district, Coors Boulevard. Now it's just a solid Coors district, both sides of that main road, basically from Corrales down to roughly Montano. Within Rio Rancho, Corrales area, 44 is Corrales, 57 is Rio Rancho. On the west side, you have a Ventana Ranch, District 29. Ventana Ranch is split between 68 and 29. The Rio Grande is used as a boundary all the way from Corrales all the way down to Gun Club-ish area. So no districts cross the river all the way down through the South Valley. House 14 stays below Central, 16 is close to what it is today, crosses I-40, 26 crosses I-40 as well, 13 is still Westgate, 12 is still South Valley, 10 continues to cross the river as it does today. One of the interesting things is if you do remove a seat from the Heights of Albuquerque, it does allow some of these other districts that are south and west of it to maintain some of their current shape. So 10 is able to stay on both sides of the river, keep its current shape roughly. 11, 18, 19 is the international district. We did straighten out a lot of the boundaries between the districts within Albuquerque. 24 moves, so that did force some of the representatives in this area to be paired. But the districts are compact and they follow relatively logical boundaries. Then the northwest, 40 and 70 are zone past plans. We've taken either 40 or 70 and move it to the west side or Rio Rancho, and 40 and 70 do stay outside of Albuquerque, but there is a significant shift in terms of their alignment. And 70 is now Mora and Las Vegas, and 40 shifts completely south into all of Torrance County and into Valencia County in terms of it picks up Rio communities and Las Maravillas. District 50, Southern Santa Fe, south of the freeway, El Dorado, down to just a little bit of Edgewood. 43 is Los Alamos into Santa Fe, 46 is Santa Fe, Pojoaque, Tesuque, 41 is Espanola up into Tierra Amarilla, 42 is Taos. 67, because 40 and 70 kind of shifted south and to the west, that allows 67 to take the rest of Raton. And or it has all of Raton now, but it allows all of Catron County to be, not Catron, I'm sorry, Colfax County to be entirely within 70. So because we don't have two full 40 and 70 in the north central, north west part, east part of the state, 67 can stay pretty, just spread out a little bit to the west towards Taos, towards Angel Fire and Eagle's Nest. It also means it doesn't have to go into Clovis. So in other plans, 67 does go into Clovis, maybe picks up some in Cannon. But in this particular case, it doesn't really go into Clovis very much at all. That does pick up Melrose. 63 maintains its current shape that we've seen. Its percent Hispanic is 57.7 in this particular plan. Compact districts in the southeast, the District 61 that's based in Hobbs does not cross the county line into Eddy County. In today's district, it doesn't, so it maintains that, I guess, characteristic. Eddy County, one big change we've seen in some plans is that Eddy County has enough population for 2 districts. In today's districts, there's a district goes all the way from the outskirts of Alamogordo into Eddy County. And in this case, you're able to get 2 districts entirely within Eddy County without either one of 54 or 55 leaving the county, and no other districts come into the county. So it's 2 solid Eddy County districts. Still have the Roswell, the House 58, Roswell, like Arthur Dexter Hagerman. District 59, Roswell into the Alto and Carrizozo and Capitan type of district. 56 is fairly similar to what you have today with Ruidoso, down through Mescalero, Tularosa, and northern part of Alamogordo. And 51, as we've seen in the past, Alamogordo into the mountains and of Otero County. 53 is a Chaparral Anthony district, no longer goes up towards Alamogordo. Instead, 52 does. 34 is Sunland Park, some nice compact districts within Las Cruces. 36, 35, 37, and 39 are all Las Cruces districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts. And 52 is a Las Cruces district that does go up to Holloman and picks up some of the farming communities in the Mesilla Valley. 32 is pretty similar to what we have today. It does take the southernmost precinct in Grant County. So Grant County, part of it is in District 32, and that does make that district look a little bit better. 38 is all of Silver City. So it unites Silver City into 38. That's one of the things that we heard during public comments. We see that CRC is not split between two districts. It's entirely within House 49, but it goes up through Socorro, it includes Reserve, Magdalena, and it does go into Valencia County. And it does not go into Belen. So today it does go into Belen, but in this particular plan, 49 does not go that far north. 40 does, as mentioned earlier, does go into Valencia. 7 and 8, similar to what you have today. Another change is that in this plan is one of the Native American districts, 6, does go into Valencia County. So that's a rough description of the plan. We still have, I'm going to make sure before, we still have 6 majority Native American districts, though one of them, House 65, is less than 60% voting age Native American. And we still have the 3 Farmington districts and, like I said, the 6 voting age Native American districts in the northwest part of the state. So that's a brief description of Concept C.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, are you hearing us?
Hold on. Member Salcedo, would you like to speak in favor of your motion?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mentioned part of it already. Again, this is a map that I'm only putting forward because I think it fits with what the committee's been looking for. Again, combined, looking at Hispanic districts and majority minority districts, it has 43. That's more than the other 2 maps we passed. The deviation is there. Just looking, it has 6 Native American majority districts, and the number that was just put out of the one at 56.8, from what I see, that's actually adult non-Hispanic. So if you look at just adult Native American, or in other words, Native American VAF, I see it at 60.8. So just pointing that out, some districts that we've talked about, not that they're of particular, just we've talked about. The district that goes from Guadalupe County pulls in Clovis, 57.7 adult Hispanic. The district south of Hobbs remains at 62.8 Hispanic. South Roswell, 65.7 Hispanic. So, and I only mention this because these are some of the districts that have come up in discussion. So I just point that out. Again, there are some pairings, but not more than we have seen with the other plans. It's right in line. So I think it's a plan that certainly works within what the committee's been saying. So I thank you and hope you consider it. And I think it's a good option for the legislature.
Thank you, Member Salcedo. Any further discussion on concept C?
Yes, sir. So concept C takes away a seat unnecessarily from northern New Mexico. That'd be House District 40. Concept C takes a seat unnecessarily away from the Northeast Heights 24 when seat 17 is actually being given up by the current representative. It ignores the Acequia plan. It ignores the Native American 22 tribe consensus plan. It is tightening the largest negative and positive deviations for no other reason than to tighten the deviations. In reality, we cannot produce, and everyone has given a valiant effort at it, a plan that, and I think this map is an excellent example of an attempt to do the best that could be done with a plus or minus 5% with Native American populations. But what it essentially does is dilute the strength of the Native American vote. So I believe this map would be challenged as a violation of the Voting Rights Act. And I do not want to forward any map that would in fact cause such a challenge. So I don't think this map meets the mandate, and understanding that prior to all the discussion that we had from the public, that research and polling generated this map as something for us to think about and talk about and for the public to comment on, and they have done that. But this map doesn't take any of that commentary in the way that it is laid out. So I don't think this map is an appropriate map now with what we've heard, because frankly, there was, as I said in the very beginning today, there was no reason to go do public comment if we pass this map, right? Because it doesn't adhere to the public comment that we received. So I would not be in favor of the passage of this map for the reasons that I just stated.
Thank you, Member Curtis. Any other discussion on concept C?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I, once again, will respectfully disagree with Member Curtis on her thoughts about this map. I think that research and polling, we did a whole series of meetings where we went and heard from the public. And I think that they put a lot of effort, research and polling, and all the staff and the many hours, countless hours building these maps, hearing that input. And I understand what she's saying with regards to the second round. I still think, as Member Salcedo said, it is hitting on a lot of the commentary that we heard about, keeping the Rio Grande River as a boundary. Many of the districts where they're at with regards to the voter age population for Hispanic or minority majority districts, and also Native American districts. As I've said countless times, I feel like it's important, and I understand what the legislation says about 10% deviation, but this is staying within the 5%, which has been a best practice that the state has used for several rounds of redistricting. I'm perplexed by the thought that a map that research and polling put together, the CRC map, would be challenged in that regard. There's no retrogression. And I think that with the deviation, with how Michael just went through it, very clean boundary lines, very clean districts, no sense of any gerrymandering at all, as you can see within just looking at it with your eye. Really trying to keep compact districts, and they're districts that don't take away from any group being able to vote in a candidate of their choice. I think this having the most minority majority districts out of all the maps that we've already passed is testament to that. And so I hope that the committee strongly considers passing this forward as a concept. We have two other concepts that have been passed. And I think that this would be a very good third concept for the legislature to consider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Cangelosi. Any further discussion on concept C?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
a
Member
few
Radigan.
comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few comments. I think it's a decent option insofar as it is something different. And I stand by my position from when we last met on Friday, that I like the idea of sending various concepts to the legislature. And another merit of the map is the tightening of the deviations. I think that I'm still not clear on, I'm in the minority of this group and that I have not been to law school. So I'm not clear on the deviations. It seems that we have some room to interpret the 10% beyond how it has been traditionally interpreted here in New Mexico. But I like the idea of submitting a map that stays within the +5, -5, and this map does that. A couple of concerns I have with the map is, first being the Hispanic voting age population. We're 29 now, I think Mr. Sharp mentioned earlier, and this map brings it to 24. We've always heard the term retrogression in the context of the Native American population, but my understanding of what that means would apply here. However, when we add the Hispanic voting age population districts, the Native American voting age population districts, and the majority minority districts, we do come to a total of 49, which is more than the 48 in the map we just previously moved forward. I don't know how that would get interpreted by the courts under the Voting Rights Act, whether it would be fair to group these minority groups together for the purpose of preserving the number of minority districts. I would muster a guess that those communities wouldn't necessarily appreciate that. I don't know how the courts would interpret that. A couple other comments, I don't know, I don't think we need to get into this at the moment, but there is the pairing of districts 21 and 24, which we just corrected fairly easily in the map that just moved forward. So I'd be curious to know if we can make that correction to this map. But what I really would like to see before we vote on this map is, we've moved forward 2 maps. And so if we, whichever direction the vote goes on this map, well, if we do, vote to move this map forward, then, and we stick to our principle of moving only 3 concepts forward to the legislature, then our discussion here is done. And I don't know that we're ready to do that, because I would like to discuss the map that was proposed by the Native Americans. So I would request Member Salcedo that if you are open to it, that we discuss the merits of the Navajo Nation map before we have a vote on that. I don't know if that's for you, Member Salcedo, or Mr. Chair, but those are my thoughts.
Member Salcedo? I guess the request is to table a vote on concept C until we look at concept J.
I think today we are here to discuss, so I certainly am not interested in cutting off the discussion. So I will table, I guess, not to allow, so that we can move forward with a discussion on J. I would simply, well, I'll leave it there and we could come back to a vote.
If there's another motion, we're going to hear your motion first. So with that, Michael Sharp, will you pull up concept J?
Sure thing, Mr. Chair.
I believe it's J1.
Right, and just as a side note, that basically I and J are identical with respect to the state, the rest of the non-northwestern part of the state. And what we did was just a little background is we started with a request, as the chair indicated, started with concept D, dropped in both the Native American groups, the Pueblo consensus with the Jicarilla plan, and then in a separate plan, in that same statewide template, we replaced the Pueblo consensus with the Navajo Nation plan. So the balance of the state outside of the Northwest is the same. And so then really what we can talk about is the Northwest by itself. So let's see if I can get J. So the first plan I that has been passed already is based on, in the Northwest, it has the Pueblo consensus. And in J, it has the Navajo Nation preferred Northwest, the Navajo Nation plan. And so I can talk about the Northwest and then also discuss the differences between the Pueblo consensus and the Navajo Nation within the Northwest part of the state. So let's see here. Let me add the district numbers. So we have just in terms of when looking at the voting age population, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 adult VAP Native American districts, all above 63% voting age. So that'd be districts 4, 5, 6, 9, 65, and 69. Where 69 is maintains kind of that traditional 65 maintains that kind of traditional Pueblo-based district that we've had for the past number of decades, including all the Pueblos in Sandoval County, up to Jicarilla and Dulce. The one difference up in this area is that while the Navajo Nation stops at Dulce with its outer boundaries, the Pueblo plan does include, this is the Lumberton area, and it's about 29-30% Jicarilla Native American. So in the Pueblo plan, this precinct is in House 65. District 69 has Chaco, goes through eastern McKinley County, through eastern Cibola County or Cibola County into Acoma Laguna, over to Isleta in Valencia County, and picks up a couple precincts in Grants, 4 or 5 precincts in the Grants area. One difference I also wanted to mention up in House 65 is that a couple more differences with this particular plan. And what I should probably do, if I can, is show them side by side. That might be a better way, just so I can show you the differences between the two. Okay, because they really are identical for the almost. So I'm going to stop sharing, then I'll bring the 2 screens back. Okay. There we go. So I'll stick to the one on the left, which is the Navajo Nation plan. And once again, you can see the Lumberton precinct near Dulce and Jicarilla is in 65. In the Cuba area, the Navajo Nation plan has this one precinct within House 65. And you can see that within the Pueblo plan, it is not. So it is in the Pueblo plan, it's excluded from the Northwestern grouping of districts. In the Pueblo plan, you'll notice that Algodones, this little precinct right here, is in the Northwest grouping of districts, the Northwest part of the Pueblo plan. Whereas in the Navajo Nation plan, Algodones is not. So that is a change. In Navajo Nation plan, Algodones is out, and in the Pueblo plan, it's in. Let's see, just make sure here. Okay. The other change, a significant change, is what happens with respect to the Zuni Pueblo. So within the Zuni Pueblo, along the Arizona border, on the Navajo Nation plan, District 9 starts in northern part of McKinley County, goes through, takes the roughly western half of Gallup, and then stops at the northern edge of Zuni, does not include any part of Zuni, Pueblo. In the Pueblo consensus plan, it does take these 2 precincts within the Zuni Pueblo. I wanted to add the district numbers real quick. There we go. So that is another a significant difference between the 2 plans. That has ramifications with respect to, well, you know, if you started with the Navajo plan and you added 2 Zuni precincts into 9, what happens to the rest of the districts in this area? And you can make changes between 5, 6, and 9. And it's just kind of a swapping between the districts. So if you added 2 Zuni precincts to 9, that means 6 is too small. It has to pick up 2 more precincts. And you'll notice that between the 2 plans, there's Mariana Lake and Pine Hill chapters. And these 2 chapters are in the Navajo plan, they're in District 5, but in the Pueblo plan, they're in District 6. So 6 lost a couple Zuni on the Pueblo plan, and it picked up a couple chapters that are in 5 in the Navajo plan. And then within Gallup, District 5 in the Pueblo plan has a couple precincts within Gallup that the Navajo plan does not. And I'll highlight them in the Navajo plan. So it's basically, we zoom in a little bit more, this little precinct, which is the same as this little guy. And these 2 precincts here, which is the same as here. So you can see the difference that in the Pueblo plan, these 3 precincts are in District 5. So it's a wheeling around of precincts within those 3 districts, depending on what happens with those 2 precincts on the Zuni Pueblo. Another change between the 2, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Hold on. There we go. Is there's 1 precinct in northern Cibola County that's Blue Water, and that has part, I think part of the Baca Pruitt, I may have gotten that wrong, but part of a chapter does extend from McKinley County down into Cibola. And in the Navajo plan, that precinct is put into House 69. In the Pueblo plan, that precinct is put into House 6. The northwest, more in San Juan County, Chaco is in House 69 in both plans. And within the Farmington area, it's identical between the 2 plans, with District 4 being a shiprock going into Farmington, and Districts 1, 2, and 3 in the Farmington Aztec area. And I just want to confirm something real quick, is that the representatives from Districts 1 and 2 are paired in a single district in District 1. So that is a commonality between the 2 plans as well. So District 3X is an Aztec Bloomfield district, 1 and 2 are Farmington-based districts. So I want to make sure that I caught the differences between the 2. I think so. So, Mr. Chair, that's a brief rundown of J, which in the rest of the state is identical to I, except for some of those little precincts around the edges.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Member Radigan or any other members have any questions about concept J?
No question, but I have to state that it's unfortunate that the Pueblos, Apaches, and Navajos could not come to a consensus, because I don't feel that it's our decision to make decisions about precincts that impact those communities. We have advanced the Pueblo consensus map, and I don't know that one's better than this one.
Michael, am I correct that the outer boundaries are the same?
Mr. Chair, the outer boundaries are slightly different in 3 places. And they
When I
are-
talk of outer boundaries, I'm talking about the region.
Right, the northwestern region?
Yes.
Correct. So yeah, there are 3 changes or differences between the 2 plans.
Okay.
And so I'll start, I guess, on the right. And we have this one, oops, let me change a little setting here, might be easier to pick out. There we go. So this one precinct that's just east of Dulce, so it has a significant Native American population. This precinct is in the Pueblo Northwest region, if you will. So it's part of House 65. In the Navajo plan, Navajo Nation plan, that precinct is not part of House 65. It's actually part of House 41. And the same can be said for the a precinct in Cuba. So in the Navajo Nation plan, except vice versa, except the opposite. In the Navajo Nation plan, this particular Cuba precinct is in 65. In the Pueblo consensus plan, that precinct is not in 65, it's in 41 instead. So maybe if I wonder if I could bring them side by side a little bit closer. So it's this Cuba precinct here and here.
Right.
And then if we take a look at the Algodones precinct in Sandoval County, north of Placitas. Oh, dang it. Is this one little precinct right here, north of Placitas. In the Pueblo consensus plan, Pueblo Jicarea consensus, Algodones is in House 65. And in the Navajo Nation plan, Algodones is not in 65, it's in 50 instead.
So Michael, what does it have to do? I mean, like what you just showed us with the Cuba Dulce thing? What did they do to balance out that population?
So Member Curtis, I'm not sure exactly how that happened. But not having necessarily looked at the populations between the Dulce precinct and the Cuba one, but it could just be a simple swap between the 2.
Okay, but you don't see anything in the Algodones swap that shows up in some other district?
That would have to show up in 50. So we'll double check on 50 real quick.
Yeah, it's got that precinct right above the tail right there.
Yeah.
Wow, you would think
Oh,
the
that's right.
issues are not insurmountable.
Well, let me see. I'm gonna.
I don't see it.
You know?
It's gotta go through,
This is what he's talking about. Yeah.
but that's
But,
Algodones.
right, that's what I'm saying. So but I don't see any other change.
Yeah.
So to Lisa's point, I don't think 50 gives up anything. It just takes in an extra precinct.
Right, those are literally the, I'm sorry, there's one other change I neglected to mention. It is on the outer boundary and I missed it while going through the list. And that is one district in Valencia, one precinct, excuse me, in Valencia County.
Here we go with Valencia County.
So Valencia County does have, this is the precinct that takes the southwestern part of Valencia County that's west of the freeway. And you can see that in the Pueblo plan, that precinct is in House 69, whereas in the Navajo Nation plan, the precinct is not in House 69, it's in 49 instead.
That's super rural. Is that right? There are very few houses,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think, and I'm double checking another a source just to make sure that I do state it accurately. And that outside of the changes on the edges between involving districts within the Northwest region, there are no other changes. I'm going to say outside of the Northwest region. All the changes happen along the region border. So the Valencia County, Algodones, Cuba, and Lumberton up at the New Mexico's northern border. Those are the only changes along the outside.
And Michael, I just want to make sure, because we didn't really spend time talking about it. The concept J that you have up is 67,242, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
And just to confirm, that is the same one that unpairs the representatives from districts House 21 and 24.
So I want to make only one comment about this map, and that was that because the pairing issue, I don't think should be done unless there's a community interest reason to do it. I just remember that Representative Montoya, who spoke to us a lot in Farmington, for those of you guys that were up there, said he didn't care if he had to move to keep his district. And so when he ends up being a person that's paired here between 1 and 2, his statement was he didn't care if he had to move. He'd love to live in that area. I mean, so it certainly makes that not as central a problem for me. So, so that was just the one thing about the pairings I wanted to mention.
And Member Curtis, I believe, I may be wrong here, but that we had that same pairing with the last map, correct? We did.
C.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Any more discussion on concept J? Okay, let's go back to concept C. Motion made by Member Salcedo and seconded by Cangelosi to adopt concept C for recommendation to the legislature. Any further discussion in light of our review of concept J? Okay.
The only statement, just a moment, Mr. Chair. The only statement I wanted to say is that I thought it was important what Member Radigan said a moment ago about not picking Native American maps. That J more closely aligns with the commentary and the testimony that we've received from people who worked very hard to make sure that they said what they needed to feel represented. And so with regard to map C and the fact that I do think that our original statement about only having 3 maps is an important one. I can't vote for C because I think that we should be forwarding J. All right, so I just wanted to make that one statement.
The only thing I would add to the discussion, if it makes a hill of beans, is the concept I, which we have advanced, seems very close to the Pueblo consensus map. To E, which is the Center for Civic Policy, which we move forward. So it's almost as though you have 2 very close Pueblo Apache consensus maps in 2 different plans, and would leave the Navajo Nation without us moving forward, I guess, the way they would like to see the Northwest region drawn. I just offer that for information. Any further discussion?
Well, I have one comment then. If we have 2 maps that look almost identical with a little bit of changes or very slight, Member Curtis is wanting to pass a third map that is very similar to that. I just want to say, then go back, let's get rid of I, vote on J, and vote on C. If her concerns are that this is more aligned, we shouldn't have voted on I then. We shouldn't have passed that. We should have gone to J if her statement is true, and C, but I think we're at C now. But I think that if that's the case, then we need to revisit if we pass I forward to the legislature and swap it with J. They're very identical. The CCP map is very close to I as well. So we'd have three very, very similar maps. And I think that we need to send a different concept to the legislature for them to have an opportunity to look at different maps, hearing from all the different communities of interest, not just one community of interest or a couple communities of interest, that all the communities of interest would be taken into account in what we're sending to the legislature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Let's vote on concept C. Cangelosi,
Yes.
Curtis,
No.
Radigan,
Pass.
Joaquin Sanchez,
Yes.
Michael Sanchez,
No.
Salcedo,
Yes.
chair votes no. Go back to Radigan.
No.
Okay, concept C fails. Is there another motion? I would move concept J forward. So I move to adopt concept J.
I'll second that motion.
The only rationale I have for this is A, gets rid of a district that people have already said they do not want. Concept B has, I don't remember, something like 20 pairings. So that's not going to fly. We voted down C. That leaves D, but D has I think a 35% Native American district. So that leaves us very little other than to advance a map that the Navajo Nation tendered, and we incorporated into D for better or for worse. But that was my request, and I believe it was the only request. And so rather than thumb our nose up at the Navajo Nation, I think we ought to move this map forward and let the legislature take a look at what a map would look like if they adopted what the Navajo Nation's boundaries would look like. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, that mirrors my thought process about it, with the hope during the process that there at the legislature that there will be agreement between these two maps, but that the Navajo Nation worked very hard on the maps that they had. They spent a lot of time on this, and it is uncomfortable in the spirit of self-determination to choose one Native American map over the other.
Any further discussion?
No, I would agree with that. Perhaps we should have proceeded differently and discussed I and J at the same time, but I don't feel that I was in a position to advance one without the other.
Any further discussion? Cangelosi,
No.
Curtis,
Yes.
Radigan,
Yes.
Joaquin Sanchez,
No.
Michael Sanchez,
Yes.
Member Salcedo,
No.
chair votes yes. Okay, concept J will also go. Okay, I think that concludes our business. We have now adopted maps for Congress, the state Senate, the PEC, and tonight the State House. So we will begin the process of all the evaluations. That's, by the way, is already taking place for the previously adopted maps. So there being nothing further, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Take care.
Bye, Keith.